the probability has probably crossed their mind that they may be unemployable tomorrow, that they may not have this high-paying job tomorrow. I've mentioned several times on my content in the past about how we subscribe to the thought process of a right fit client. And our right fit clients in the yesteryears were high net worth individuals as they are now, but also high income executives for fairly large companies like airlines, Fortune 500 companies, powerhouses, and things like that. The incomes were probably in the range of between $500,000 to sometimes even in excess of $1 million, $1.5 million US per annum. And what they had in common with each other is their thoughts about what was required for them and their families versus an entrepreneur. And the entrepreneur I'm referring to is an entrepreneur that probably made roughly about the same money as the high income executive, but the thought process on what was required for one group of people versus the other were very different. So I always wondered why. And here is what I observed over the years. The executive in most cases, on all his business travel, was completely funded by his company. His business travel, because of his position, was usually business class or first class. The medical insurance product that was offered to him versus the rest of the company was usually a superior plan with one of the largest international insurance companies globally and things like that. The benefits that were available to him were probably things like education for children, schooling, college, rent, and pretty much everything else covered. So the income he then earned thereafter was a net savings to him, or could potentially be classified as lifestyle income. Whereas the entrepreneur on the flip side, he may have been a little more cautious with his money. He was not thinking about the business class travel. In some cases, sure, but in most cases, no. They would try and find a more better way to manage that, resourceful way to manage those flights, whether it was using points, using company quotas, or whatever else may be the case. The difference between the two is in one case the company was paying for it, and in the other case, even if the company was paying for it, that money still came out of the entrepreneur's profit. And with this came up issues around succession planning and life insurance. And the difference is mainly in the thinking. You see, the executive never put themselves in that place to think that their family deserves the same level of lifestyle, income, etc. that they were accustomed to in their absence. Whereas the entrepreneur always thought about succession planning, about leaving behind to the next of kin. The executive was still earning a salary, and maybe they invested some of that money, maybe they didn't. They tried to create the assets, but securing their future is almost an alien concept to them. The probability has probably crossed their mind that they may be unemployable tomorrow, that they may not have this high-paying job tomorrow. Our most successful executives that we worked with in the past very rarely have a life insurance cover that goes beyond the $3 or $4 million mark. On the flip side, I'll look at an entrepreneur who may be just making $500,000 a year. In most cases, their life insurance coverage is in excess of $5 to $10 million. So they're thinking about the future and the possibility that they may not be around tomorrow, and this wealth creation today, how it could benefit their family in the long run. Whereas the executive almost is in some form of a bubble, or maybe the situation hasn't arisen yet that makes them think about what about tomorrow. And most of the time we've noticed that with executives that are crossing over into the space of being unemployed for a while, or at some point becoming an entrepreneur, that period in between when the transition has taken place completely is often very turbulent for them. There is the period before which your company becomes profitable, where you're burning your own money, where you're living off your savings, you're living off your investments, you're living off whatever you saved for the rainy day. And at this time is your critical period when if things have to go wrong, if you don't have the right tools in place, things could go completely amiss. The most common structure I've seen with C-suite executives or high-income executives is that they have the best medical insurance policies and possibly the best group life insurance covers in place. The issue that we normally tend to see is that when they transition from being an executive to an entrepreneur or being unemployed, these policies are no longer valid. And now medical insurance or medical treatment has become their own problem. In some cases, they've spent so much of time being an executive that they may have become older and maybe even uninsurable by the time they're ready to go on the next journey. At that point in time, trying to procure a life insurance policy may be expensive, may be impossible. I think that these individuals should consider the possibility of purchasing individual medical insurance while they're still employed by their companies. Which means, yes, you pay out of pocket even though you have a group medical policy in place. But this is your security blanket. This allows you tomorrow, when you are no longer employed by your company, to continue to have a decent level of medical insurance policies in place without running the risk of an insurance company declining you cover. Purchasing the right level of life insurance at the time when you're still employed and have access to various financial tools because of the strength of your corporation is also very vital to ensure that in the years after you've finished the journey of being that high-income executive, you still have a good pot left behind for the rest of your family. Trying to think of your life beyond the role of an executive and possibly as an entrepreneur or as unemployed in the future is a very critical part of it.